Hey everybody, welcome to Beethead. I'm here today with Cody and Matt Steele from SonRise Church in downtown Salem. How you guys doing today?
It's a good day.
Doing awesome.
Doing great.
Yeah.
All right, so in this show we're going to talk a little bit about music. Both of these guys are actually at the worship team at SonRise Church. Cody is the worship leader and the pastor there, and then Matt is also a pastor at SonRise, and he plays the bass. He slaps some bass.
I slap at the bass.
He slapped the bass big time. I sound like a leprechaun now. I'm sorry. Are we going to get flagged for copyright infringement for directly quoting a movie there?
I hope not.
I hope so, because
Oh.
I like court. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. Moving on. Music stuff. I know that you guys have both been doing music for a while, to various extents. I know that, Matt, you sort of recently have gotten into doing major music type stuff. And
Well, I wouldn't say major.
major. You've gotten so majorly into it.
So major.
So major.
I'm up to quarter notes now. So
Dude, that's awesome. Those are the best notes. And I gather that you've been doing music for quite a while. I mean, I know you do.
Various experiences with it.
Various musical experiences. And I personally, I do musical stuff. I played at coffee shops before, and I write my own music. And so, and we all have really good taste in music, I think.
of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, let's just start off with that. Let's start off with let's start off with a softball question.
I'm kidding.
Tell us about you. No. What are some of your favorite bands? Just starting off, like, in general, all bands. Like, what have you been listening to recently?
Well, it's cliche as a worship pastor. I do listen to a lot of worship. I like independent worship.
Yeah.
So bands like Ascend the Hill and Will Regan, United Pursuit. I listen to a lot of the bands that are on comeandlive.com. I'm actually wearing their shirt. It's a network of Christian musicians that they put all their music on this website for free. It's also kind of a mission-based movement as well.
Nice.
Cool little thing, worth checking out.
Yeah.
But that's where I get a lot of my music from. But other than that, I grew up listening to metal, hardcore music. Like as Elaine Diane back in the day, one of my favorite bands is Haste the Day. They're not around anymore, but also August Burns Red. And then I also like more jam band style music as well. Like Dispatch is one of my favorite bands. And State Radio, Guster, all those. We went and saw Dispatch a year ago.
Finally.
So that was
One of the life goals done.
Bucket list. Boom.
Check
Killer.
it off the list.
It was good times.
Yeah, very nice. Now, I know you went and recently, just very recently, went and saw Cake and Sigaros.
Last weekend.
Just last weekend.
Yeah, Cake was phenomenal.
Yeah.
They put on a really good show. The sound, I'm always picky about bands sounding good live. They nailed it. They sounded awesome live.
Good.
There was a little brief dialogue in between sets in which he explained to people that they should get off their cell phones, stop taking pictures, stop recording video, and just be in the moment. And I was just like, thank you. Like, let's experience this together. Like, it was awesome. And then Sigaros, like, I don't even have to say anything. It was everything that I anticipated it being, and a phenomenal presentation. The use of stage was fantastic, and we're talking about like 12 people in this band.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah, so it was a good weekend. Built to Spill was there as well.
Oh.
Awesome set. Built to Spill is a really solid band.
Yeah.
They've been doing music for so long. They just really know. They can anticipate what each other are doing. They know where they're gonna take it. You know, it was solid.
There's kind of that sense, that gut sense of what to do next type of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like seeing bands that can do that because, I know there are some bands that you listen to their album and it's like really polished and you're like, oh, wow, that's really good. But then you hear them live and it sounds like they haven't played live before. And it's nice to see bands that got famous because they were so good at playing live.
Yeah.
And they just played live enough times that
Definitely.
somebody heard them and was like, you need to record something.
Dispatch is like that. All-time favorite band, hands down. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say that now.
Both of us.
But
yeah, in common.
that aside, we're not paid to say that.
Dispatch is not standing behind the curtain here.
Yes, but no, like they got known because of the shows they were doing. They were traveling. They were putting out music.
Yeah.
And they actually sold out Madison Square Garden 3 nights in a row. That's the record from what I
intense.
understand
Of
of the largest indie band
Yeah.
to sell out an entire venue. Like, I mean, Madison Square Garden. That's a lot of people.
That's not a small space.
Yes,
No.
and
multiple nights.
and they
Yeah.
do this because of their fan base. I mean, they just have a really solid fan base. And I talked to guys at the show that we went to that were like, oh man, I've been waiting 10 years to hear Dispatch. and you know, I wish I could say that, but I'm too young. But
Yeah.
but it was so cool. I mean, Dispatch spanned generations as far as a fan base.
Yeah.
You know, and so they really got themselves out there just from doing it. You
Yeah.
know? It was awesome.
Now, actually, it just made me think of one guy who recently, I just realized, does span generations. You know Tom Jones? Oh man, I'm getting his name right. No, Tom Green's the comedian. Tom Jones is the musician. There's a huge difference between those two men.
yes.
But Tom Jones, it's not unusual.
okay,
that guy. He's like 80, or at least 70. He's at least 70, and he just put out a new album last year. All new.
Solid.
He just wrote it, and it's
Solid.
good. I mean, like, it's the type of thing he's updated his sound enough that it still sounds good. Like, it fits really well in the indie genre, and just it sounds great. And his voice, but he hasn't changed. Like, it's not the type of thing where you listen to a band when they try to update with the times, and you're just like, not doing it. Yeah.
You can tell when you hear a band that just plays because they love to play music.
Yeah.
And they love to make music that they love.
Yeah.
And as opposed to trying to create something that's going to be successful.
Right.
And I'm personally more interested in the effort behind it and in the passion behind what's being played. Some people just look for a sound that they can catch on to, but even if I don't like the person that plays the music, I won't listen to them, even if they make good music.
Yeah.
And that's just a thing of mine. Not everyone feels that way, but
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember hearing something. I'm terrible at keeping up with the pop culture newspapers, where it's like talking about, and then this person did this. It's like, I don't care. But I remember there was talk about John Mayer, that John Mayer would write songs just because he's like, what do people want to hear? And I don't know if that was substantiated or not, because I know everyone's prime and ready to just fling junk at John Mayer because he's done well for himself. But yeah, I mean, and with John Mayer, I like his music. I mean, even if he is doing it for just to sell, I mean, I do like his music. But I think, so I'm not necessarily, I don't really have any feeling either way about John Mayer, honestly. But John Mayer does, I don't stay up at,
I do have an opinion about John Mayer.
You do have an opinion about John Mayer?
But,
Oh,
actually,
man. Yeah.
We have to go in there, but he came out with an article a while back, and it was about how wonderful pornography was.
Oh, nice,
And,
John Mayer.
yeah,
Thanks,
and
John.
just that he can just spend his time and get to choose whatever girl he wants, which is exactly why
Oh, my
I
gosh.
don't
Don't like
support
John.
pornography, and I think it's a very destructive thing, personally. Most of
Yeah.
the church agrees,
Yeah.
but
Doesn't
he
surprise
kind
me
of
at all,
goes the
John Mayer.
complete opposite direction of that, and
Yeah.
came out with an article just totally thinking that it's one of the greatest things that humanity has ever done, and so
Wow.
and that's one I don't listen to John Mayer. I don't like to, because that's all I think about now when I listen to John Mayer.
Every time you listen to Your Body is a Wonderland, it's just like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
no. And yeah, I mean, it's like, I do know a lot of people who listen to music, and I didn't know that, and I'm not going to listen to John Mayer. thanks for ruining John Mayer for me, man. But who will listen to that? And some people who say it's like, I just put that aside, and I'm just like, it's music. and some other people who, and I think when you get to know, not personally necessarily, but just get to know the type of person who's behind the music, and that's something that's recent, I think, because to an extent, like let's say in the 70s and 80s, most people didn't know what the bands looked like. You would just hear their music and it'd be on the radio, and you'd be like, yeah, that's great. I like that music. And you wouldn't necessarily know the backstory or the tabloid goings-on of the bands. Because, I mean, I'm sure when you look back in history and they tell you what they were doing, you're like, whoa. That's pretty crazy. But when it was just about music, and I don't think that's for better or for worse. I think it really is just a different thing. And, I mean, Matt and I were talking about this earlier with the fact that when you hear, like our parents' generation would talk about, they'd have maybe 30 bands that they would listen to because you were sort of you had to buy every album to listen to it, or listen to it on the radio, and the radio only plays certain songs. And so you didn't really have that huge, I guess, renaissance almost that we have now with the internet, where you can just listen to whatever the heck you want, whenever you want. Like with Spotify, I have a playlist that's 1,500 songs. It's not even a playlist anymore. It's a library.
It's just a hurricane of music.
Yeah, and I just and it's the type of thing, I've never seen these bands before, never seen them live. I do research on them. I write about certain, I spotlight them, and I research them. But it's like somebody says, hey, you should listen to Grizzly Bear, and I'm like, okay, boom, all their albums are now on my playlist. And just a shameless plug, The Catamist is one of the best albums I've ever heard. Have you heard that album? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I enjoy them
very
much.
I like that album a lot. But yeah, and so I think that there really is, the access is a lot greater. But with certain groups, I think that the reach can be limited. My next question is about with Christian musicians or musicians who are Christians. How do you feel about a group or artist necessarily branding themselves with that label and saying, I am a Christian musician? Do you think that it's a compromising approach to appeal to a mainstream audience? Like, think Switchfoot. That Switchfoot doesn't identify as a Christian band necessarily, but they write Christian music. Or Matt was talking about bands that are saying that they're spirit-filled and that they're individually Christians, but they're spirit-filled, and they're making music, and it doesn't narrowly focus them into Christian music. Do you think that means that they're sort of selling out on their principles, or do you think that there's merit to that because it reaches a wider audience? And that's for both of you.
I honestly, it's hard to know for sure what goes through a band's mind in that situation at times, because for one, I'm not in the mainstream music industry. Yeah. And personally, I'm not that interested in it. So I mean, it's a difference in heart for me. But well, not heart, but just calling, I guess. I wouldn't. It's just not something I'm interested in. But I know many bands just avoid being labeled as a Christian band because of the fact that it's a genre and it's a specific market. You know, like it completely changes the type of, it can completely change the type of company so that, you know, become involved in you and the type of festivals you get invited to and your fan base. Yeah. The way people talk about you. It's I think some bands would rather work behind the scenes and have be able to talk about their faith on a more of a micro level instead of just opening it up, because unfortunately when we've touched on this a little bit before, but when you make something that's obviously Christian, it tends to be that only Christians listen to it. Yeah. So in that sense, I understand why some bands would do that. Yeah. Because they don't want just Christians to listen to their music. Yeah. And me personally, I mean, I prefer to be an open book, not feel like I'm hiding anything. And I think it's just as honorable to go out, say you're all Christians, and it's difference in intention of making the music too. If you make worship music, what else are you gonna do? Right. Yeah. If it's for that goal. I'm personally more interested in doing worship. So I mean, yeah. All the people that listen to worship are gonna listen, but I think it can go a lot of different directions. What do you think?
Yeah, I know there's a couple of hardcore bands that I listen to that call themselves Spirit-filled, and the reason why they've actually not just not called themselves a Christian band, but actually rejected that label, is because the simple fact that not all of their songs are a message. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not all of their songs are focused on preaching the gospel or sharing Jesus. Some of the times they write songs about things like, you know what, I had this relationship and it hurt,
Yeah.
you know, or like, you know, just stuff that happens in life, you know, and
Yeah.
so they want to be able to cover a broader range of subjects in their songs, and not just have the audience think, well, you know, they're here to tell us about Jesus, you know,
Yeah.
like as if that's the only thing that we feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And putting that label on it, I know a lot of times that when you say I'm a Christian band, if you put out something that, or a Christian singer, or anything like that, and you put out something that's not traditionally Christian, if like, yeah, you write a song about how you're really in love with this girl, or how you write a song about how you broke up, a girl broke up with you and you feel bad about that, and you put that out there, it's like, you know, you're really, they'll say, oh, you're drifting away from your message.
You're turning secular.
You're turning secular, yeah. And I think that,
It's unfortunate.
yeah, and I mean, even one of the things I want to focus on, and with this show as well, is that it's not always, I don't want to be ashamed of talking about Christianity, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. But when you get into the place where that's all you talk about, I think you really do, you kind of limit your audience, because people like, it doesn't accurately represent the hearts of people who are doing it, because people do other things. And God is touching all of those things, and He's in all of those things, but they are distinct. I mean, when you're playing music, if you're doing other things, you can reach people with emotions that they wouldn't necessarily feel. Because someone who's not a Christian and you're singing about how you want to be obedient to Him, a person who's not a Christian, I know I haven't been a Christian for very long. 2 years ago, I would what? Obedient?
Yeah,
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But if someone hears a song about I love this girl, and she's awesome, like a song like that, that's something that a lot of people can relate to. And then listening to that, say, you know, I really like this band, and I want to listen to more of their stuff, and then get drawn in and hear another song that just talks about, you know, God is awesome, God is really awesome, and as a way to bring in people who wouldn't normally listen to that music.
Yeah, and it's interesting how a band can, you know, be considered mainstream or secular, as the church likes to put it.
Yeah.
But be able to still sing about the same things, write about the same things, with a similar message. And Flyleaf is one that sticks out to me in that subject. Is most of their songs that Lacey wrote is blatant worship.
Yeah.
And when I saw them, it was one of the coolest shows I went to, because she's obviously worshiping God on stage, but their entire audience is mainstream. They're not really labeled as a Christian band.
Yeah.
Most people know that she is, but and the other guys too. One on the other side of the matter, I think, is just is accountability. And another reason why I wouldn't be afraid to call myself a Christian in a band. I don't know, you might still want to make that distinction somehow.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's, in some way, a happy medium to all this.
Yeah. I
But
definitely think so.
when some people don't know that you do have faith, it almost can remove a sense of accountability. Like a recent incident was the lead singer of As I Lay Dying. That was he hired a man to kill his wife, and that was devastating to all the Christians that listen to him, because most of his songs have Christian themes and are about Jesus, and he went and did something like that. But a large amount of As I Lay Dying's listeners are not Christian, because they're very immersed in the mainstream music world. They never even went close to going to a Christian label.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that might have been different if he would have made it more clear that he did have faith, and that he did believe in God and he did follow Jesus, and that he didn't necessarily have to be the main point of all his music, and didn't necessarily have to be labeled on everything they did, but
have that. Yeah, I
it
understand.
just maybe he would have thought about being a leader to people that looked up to him a little more.
Yeah.
Because anyone that has influence is a leader, and it hurts to see when someone you look up to fall like that. But
Yeah, that's true. And I think accountability is a really good way to put that, because I know with a lot of life situations, you can, if you just keep it in your heart and don't tell anyone about it, the only person you're accountable to is you. And I mean, as Christians, it's been said a lot of times, like it's said in the Bible, that the heart is corrupt. And the things that we want aren't necessarily the things that are good. And so when you put it out to somebody else and there's that check, then they can say, hey, that you're going in a bad direction, man. And I think, and I do think that is important. And that can even come just from you can be a mainstream band, but spend time with other Christians or even just, just people who aren't in that world where a lot of the music industry, there's drugs. You hear about all the time people who are doing drugs and doing things that are bad for them.
And it's not to say that you have to be perfect.
No,
people
of course
mess up,
not.
and things happen, and Tim Lambesis can pick things back up and turn his life back around, and just keep doing what he's doing, and there's no question on his salvation or his faith. That's something between him and God.
Yeah.
And his walk can be forever changed, and he can be even closer to God after all this goes through and gets figured out. But I don't know. I definitely think a band should be very supportive of their fans and aware of the influence that they have on them.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing for me that I see is to respond and have some. If someone's really connected to their beliefs and they're obviously influenced personally by them, I think it'd be good to see more awareness of that coming from a band.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting dynamic also with social media the way it is these days. Like you're in a band, but it's like all of a sudden your entire life is being spotlighted, You've got Instagram, you can show people your breakfast in the morning, and people are going to look at it because this is, Cody from that band, and I need to see what he's doing. And like when I joined Twitter, the first post that I saw was Lance Armstrong saying that he was having popcorn with his kids, and I actually stopped using Twitter for a few months just because of that. I was like, that's just way too far for me, like. But there's that all of a sudden this like magnified influence that these bands have. Yeah. Like, because now it's like you don't just hear their music. It's like it's like VH1 Behind the Music on steroids. Like now you see everything. It's weird,
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, there was recently a thing that I think just within the last couple of days, it was the K-Love Fan Awards, doing this big. Christian music radio award ceremony type thing, and one of the musicians I follow is Carrie Job, who is a really awesome Christian musician,
she's good.
And I follow her on Twitter and Facebook, and it was so interesting. It was just live updates. I'm getting ready. We're in the car. We're driving there. Cool to see everybody there, and it's like I don't know you. I've never met you in my life, and I know real time where you are and like how you feel about this. But I've never. There's probably no situation where I'm going to meet her.
Yeah, which is awesome for things like like what was going on in Tunisia and Syria and Yemen. All those things where it's like hey, there's a group that's massing over here. Let's go over and support them. And so Twitter was live feeding the entire like revolutions going on. But. Knowing what someone had for breakfast and knowing that they're getting in the car now and then like now they're gonna go to the store, it's just it's weird.
Yeah, it's like I don't know you and I've never met you. I don't need to know these things about you. Like I don't need to know that you're eating Cheerios for breakfast because I feel like I'm intruding on your living room.
It
I'm
seems like
intruding on your
information
kitchen.
overload.
Yeah.
I can imagine how bad that might get with something like Google Glass catching on.
Oh my gosh.
With, so now you're getting live videos from the perspective of the person.
Not only do I know that you're eating Fruit Loops right now, I can see
watching-
from your eyes. I
watching
can see
you
them.
eat it.
Yeah.
I know what your
First-person view.
pajamas look like, and I'm just glad you're wearing pajamas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, and the whole thing that they're banning them in all these different situations preemptively, like you can't have them in casinos, you can't have them in,
Oh,
in
There's places where
restaurants.
you shouldn't have them.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Taking tests.
I'm curious if it'll
Secret
catch on
meetings.
At all, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, and I heard somebody saying that it's like, that they won't catch on because they look too ridiculous. I'm like, BlackBerry, earpieces. Everyone said that that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I still see people with earpieces in. And it's,
Will people be willing to wear a headband around their face? I mean,
Yeah.
to the point where, I mean, everyone, because not everyone even uses the headpieces
yeah.
in public situations.
Yeah.
It's still like not become like a common thing, and they're hoping like everybody's going to be wearing these Google Glass
Of course
things.
they are. They love that because
That's what they
everyone's going to buy
want,
them.
but they wanna, but
Yeah. And I read a really good article about it with a guy saying that he
know.
hangs out in Silicon Valley a lot and he talks with some of the employees from Google. And he was saying the times that I've talked to people wearing Google glasses have been the most uncomfortable social interactions I've ever had. Because it's like you just see it. It's like you have a camera on me right now. You may or may
always.
not be recording me right now talking to you. And so it's like they're always watching. I can't
mean
make-
like right now?
I can't make, yeah. Like,
yeah, all
I
they
have it. It's right here.
all they have to do is this.
Cody's
yeah.
gauge is actually a microphone. But that saying that it's such an uncomfortable social interaction because you never know. Are you going to make that inappropriate joke with somebody or an inside joke that somebody might misunderstand when you're saying, hey, I remember that time with like talking about somebody's underwear or something like that. And it's like it's a thing that you know, but somebody who's listening or they post it on YouTube and people are
Totally.
saying, oh my gosh, that's so inappropriate. What is this guy doing? He's having a
Constant
conversation.
Threat of blackmail.
Yeah, and so, and that really sums up Google Glass. It's just constant threat of blackmail. That's all you need to
threat
know.
of
That's their slogan, their title line. But, all right, well, we are wrapping up our show on a very positive note and a great endorsement for Google Glass. Sorry, Google. But yeah, so thank you guys for joining us today. We've had a great time here talking with you about some music and some current events and technology. We're looking forward to you joining us next time for Beethead. And I just want to thank Matt and Cody for being here today and chit-chatting with me about this. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day, night, or whenever you're watching this. And we will see you next time. Honestly, I was doing gardening a couple years ago, and
Urban farming.
that is fantastic.
We gotta be. This is a culture show. We need to do, some buzzwords.
Urban farming.
Urban farming, rooftop
just-
gardens.
Urban farming, is that just like when you plant random vegetables in
Well, it's
places
the
they
idea
shouldn't be?
that there's so much free real estate with people are using that is just like yards and stuff. That my house, I've got a garden out front.
Oh, nice.
And the amount with food shortages, if everyone was growing their own food, type of thing. Yes.
I would
I
be
am
pleased.
pleased because
I'm picturing of like walking downtown and walking by one of those plant pots and is that a radish? What is it?
With Beethead, we planted a bunch of beets, and I think because we're terrible gardeners, we let them flower on accident.
Nah.
And but beet flowers look really cool because you've got the red stalk, and then it curls up, and he's got these like khaki-colored seed pods all the way down it. And I just thought that was really cool. And I drew this. I had this like fractal drawing program on my computer at one point, and I drew a really cool thing that is you can see it on my website beetheadmedia.com.
Plug.
Shameless plug.
Is that a radish? What is it?